The Alpha King lost control when he saw his ex dancing for other men. The moon hung low over the kingdom of Arvindal, a pale guardian, casting silver light across the stone towers and cobbled streets. The wind carried whispers through the air, the kind that told stories of power, betrayal, and love long forgotten. In the heart of the kingdom stood the great castle of Kalen, the Alpha King, a ruler both feared and admired. His name was spoken with reverence by those who obeyed, and with fear by those who dared to challenge him. Yet even kings, no matter how mighty, carried shadows in their hearts. Kalen stood on the highest balcony of his castle, cloaked in black silk and silver embroidery. His sharp eyes scanned the horizon, the dark forests that bordered his kingdom, and the far-off mountains where ancient magic still lingered. Tonight was not an ordinary night. It was the night of the masquerade, a grand celebration held once every decade to honor the old kings and the spirits that protected the land. Nobles, merchants, and foreign dignitaries filled the castle halls, each masked to hide their identities, their secrets, and sometimes their guilt. But Kalen cared little for the guests. But his mind was elsewhere, restless, haunted by a name he had tried so long to forget. Lysara. Years ago, Lysara had been his world. The only person who had ever touched his heart without fear. She was fierce, clever, and beautiful in a way that rivaled the stars. But fate had torn them apart. Rumors had whispered that she had vanished into the distant city of Lyrian, leaving only memories and a scar on Kalen's soul. He had tried to bury it, to mask it with his authority. But some wounds did not heal. Some ghosts refused to stay buried. The sound of music drifted from the grand hall below, a melody woven from stringed instruments and the haunting notes of a silver flute. Kalen descended the spiral staircase, his boots clicking against stone, each step a reminder of his power and control. The hall was a swirl of color and movement. Masked dancers twirled, servants carried trays of wine, and flames danced in the torchlight, casting shadows that seemed almost alive. Yet among the crowd, Kalen's gaze searched for one face, one memory, one ghost from his past, and then he saw her, Lysara. She stood in the center of the hall, her dark hair cascading like a waterfall over her shoulders, her mask adorned with black feathers and silver filigree. Her gown shimmered like midnight, and she moved with a grace that made even the bravest men pause. She was dancing, laughing softly, surrounded by men who clearly admired her. Every turn of her body, every tilt of her head, seemed to pull at something deep within Kalen. Control, his greatest weapon, slipped through his fingers like water. His chest tightened, his jaw clenched, and for the first time in years, he felt powerless. Anger, longing, and heartbreak collided inside him. How dare she dance for other men? How dare she live freely while he had carried her absence like a wound? Yet even as fury burned, another feeling stirred. Awe. Lysara was still his world, whether she knew it or not, and for a moment the Alpha King, ruler of Arvindal, was nothing more than a man standing in the shadows, watching the woman he had loved more than life itself. He pushed through the crowd, moving with the silent authority that commanded attention. Nobles parted instinctively, sensing the storm behind his eyes. But Lysara did not see him. Or perhaps she did not dare to. She spun once, twice, and then laughter escaped her lips like silver bells. That sound, once a melody to his heart, now cut like a dagger. Kalen's hand curled into a fist at his side, the ache in his chest nearly unbearable. "Kalen," a voice whispered beside him. It was Sir Dorian, his closest advisor and friend. "She is here, but you must." "Enough," Kalen said, his voice low and dangerous. "Do not speak. I see her. That is all I need." His eyes never left her form, following her every movement, every subtle glance she cast toward the other dancers. He did not understand why she was here, why fate had brought her back to him now, in the center of his kingdom, under his eyes. But one thing was clear: he could not let her go again. The music slowed, and Lysara's dance drew toward a close. She curtsied to the men who had surrounded her, and for a moment Kaelin thought she would disappear into the crowd without meeting his gaze. But then their eyes locked. The world seemed to tilt, the noise of the hall fading into silence. Time held its breath. In that instant, he saw the years she had endured, the pain hidden behind her smile, and the unspoken longing mirrored in her dark eyes, the same longing he had felt every day without her. Kaelin stepped forward, the hall suddenly feeling too small, too suffocating, too full of ghosts. He needed answers, and yet he feared them. He had lived with the illusion of control, but now he realized that control was gone. He wanted to call her, to demand her truth, to reclaim what had been lost. But the words stuck in his throat. Pride warred with desire, and fear warred with hope. Before he could reach her, Lysara moved. She spun once more, glancing over her shoulder as if sensing his presence without seeing him fully. Then, as quickly as she had appeared, she disappeared into the shadows of the castle corridor. The torchlight flickered across empty space where she had stood, leaving only a single black feather behind. Kaelin bent to pick it up, running his fingers over its delicate edge. It was a symbol he recognized: danger, secrecy, and the mark of a curse long whispered in Arvendel's oldest tales. The feather was not merely a token, it was a warning. Someone had brought Lysara here for a purpose, and that purpose did not include letting her go freely. His heart pounded, and though his instincts screamed to chase her, he paused. He could not rush blindly. Lysara had survived the years, survived the darkness of exile, and now she returned not as a helpless girl, but as a woman with secrets he could not yet understand. The night grew colder, and the moon climbed higher, casting silver light through the open windows. Kaelin returned to the balcony, holding the feather in his hand. His thoughts were a tangle of fury and longing. How had she survived all these years? Why had she danced before him, almost teasing him with the memory of what had been? And most importantly, who had sent her back? He did not notice the soft footsteps behind him until a voice broke the silence. Kaelin. He whirled, sword at the ready, but it was only Sir Dorian. Concern etched into his face. "Your Majesty, you cannot go after her alone. There are dangers in the shadows that even your strength cannot face unprepared." Kaelin did not lower his guard. "She is here, and she belongs to no one but me," he said, his voice a low growl. "I will find her, and I will know the truth." Sir Dorian hesitated, knowing better than to argue, and followed silently as Kaelin moved into the labyrinthine corridors of the castle. The walls were lined with portraits of ancestors, eyes seeming to watch the king's every step. Maskers twisted unnaturally, and the air felt heavy with old magic. Kaelin's thoughts were consumed by Lysara. Her smile, her laughter, the way she had always challenged him and softened him all at once. Hours passed. The castle grew quieter. The guests long departed, leaving only the flicker of torches to guide his path. And then, in the deepest corridor, Kaelin saw it. A faint glow emanating from a door slightly ajar. Beyond it, the faint scent of jasmine and smoke lingered. Her signature. Unmistakable. He pushed the door open, only to find emptiness. The glow was gone, replaced by a cold wind that seemed to whisper warnings. On the floor lay another black feather, its presence more ominous than the first. Kaelin picked it up, his jaw tightening. Someone had orchestrated this. Someone wanted him to follow, to be drawn into a game he did not yet understand. And the thought of Lysara in danger, whether willingly or unwillingly, ignited a fire within him that no kingly armor could contain. He turned back to the corridor, eyes scanning for movement. The shadows seemed to twist around him, as if alive, and a whisper floated on the wind. "Find me, if you dare." The voice was familiar, soft, haunting, and filled with the same mixture of command and playfulness that had drawn him to her years ago. Kaelin's breath caught. He had not felt such a pull in all his years of ruling. It was a call he could not resist, and he knew, deep within, that this night would change everything. For the first time, he would not only chase a ghost of the past, he would confront the darkness of his own heart. Kaelin clenched the feathers tightly in his hand and stepped into the corridor, shadows stretching like fingers around him. He did not know what lay ahead, danger, betrayal, or revelation. But one truth was clear. Lysara had returned, and he could no longer remain the king who ruled without feeling. Tonight he was merely a man who had lost control the moment he saw the woman he loved dancing for other men, and he would not rest until he had uncovered every secret she carried, even if it meant walking through fire, shadow, and the whispers of old curses. The night deepened. The moon climbed higher, and the castle held its breath. Somewhere in the shadows, Lysara watched, her eyes glinting with mystery and intent. The game had begun, and neither the Alpha King nor the woman who had haunted his dreams for years would leave unchanged. And in that quiet, tense moment, the kingdom seemed to hold its own breath, waiting for the collision of past love, present danger, and the dark magic that lingered in the bloodline of kings. The moon had slipped behind a curtain of clouds, leaving the castle in a dim, silvery gloom. Kaelin moved through the labyrinthine corridors, the black feathers clutched tightly in his hand. Each step echoed against the stone walls, the sound swallowed by the silence that seemed alive with whispers. The castle itself felt different tonight, as if it sensed Lysara's presence and the storm her return had stirred. Kaelin's mind was a storm of emotions, longing, anger, fear, and a desire he barely understood. Lysara had returned, dancing for other men, yet vanishing before he could reach her. Who had brought her back? Why now? And most importantly, was she safe? These questions haunted him as he followed the trail of feathers, each one leading deeper into the ancient heart of the castle. The path led him to the old library, a room forgotten by most of the court, where scrolls and tomes collected dust over centuries. It was here, in the shadow of the ancestors, that Kaelin finally paused. A sudden chill brushed against his skin, as if the walls themselves were warning him, and then he heard it. A soft voice, melodic and familiar, floating through the darkness. "Kaelin," he froze. The voice came from the far corner of the library, near a wall lined with ancient books. He advanced slowly, senses alert, every instinct ready for a trap, and there she was. Lysara, standing in the glow of a single candle, her eyes shimmering like dark jewels, her hands lightly brushing the spines of old tomes. She did not move, but her presence filled the room, magnetic and impossible to ignore. "Why are you here?" Kaelin asked, his voice low, controlled, though every fiber of him trembled. "Why dance before me only to vanish into the shadows?" Lysara turned to him, a small, almost sad smile touching her lips. "Because some truths are not easy to face," she said softly, "and some dangers must be faced alone." Kaelin's chest tightened. "Dangers?" His voice was almost a growl now, more from emotion than anger. "Do you think I cannot protect you?" "I know you can protect many," she said, her gaze steady. "But there are threats even you cannot fight, Kaelin. Not with swords, not with armies. This is different. This is old. Older than both of us." Her words were cryptic, yet they carried a weight he could feel. Kaelin stepped closer, trying to close the distance that time pride and secrets had created between them. "Tell me, Lysara," he said, voice rough with emotion. "What has kept you away all these years? Why vanish without a word, She hesitated, as though measuring the trust between them. Then, slowly, she spoke. I left to protect you from a curse that followed me the moment we parted, a curse tied to your family, to the blood of kings. It is why I dance tonight, not for them, but for you, to draw you in, to warn you, without exposing you to danger yet. Kylene's breath caught. A curse? His kingdom, his bloodline, had always been shadowed by stories of magic, dark forces, and ancient promises. But he had never imagined that the woman he loved had carried such a burden. A curse? His voice was barely a whisper. Explain. Lysara's eyes softened, though they were filled with pain. It is a charm, a binding that draws desire and danger alike. Wherever I go, I attract men who would harm, use, or control me. It is a shadow I cannot escape alone. And now it is tied to you as well. Because of your blood, Kaelin, the curse has found its way to Arvindal. Kylan's fingers clenched the edge of a nearby table. Rage, fear, and frustration surged through him. Then why show yourself tonight? Why risk everything? Because the curse is growing stronger, Lysara said, stepping closer, yet still keeping a careful distance. It does not care who it harms. If I do not act, it will consume everything and everyone around me. I needed you to see me, to understand the danger. I could not bear to let it grow unnoticed, even if it means risking your anger or your heart. Kaelin's heart pounded in his chest. She had suffered for years in silence, hiding a burden he could barely comprehend. And yet here she was, returning to him, brave, radiant, and impossibly distant at the same time. He wanted to take her in his arms, to shield her from the darkness she carried, but he knew that even his strength might not be enough. And you think I will let this curse take you again? He said, voice steady despite the storm raging inside. I will fight it, Lysara. No shadow, no magic, no force will ever harm you while I draw breath. Her lips trembled in the faint candlelight. Kaelin.
It is not that simple. This is older than both of us.
It is tied to the choices our families made centuries ago, and it is tied to your own power. You cannot simply fight it like an enemy on the battlefield. You must understand it. You must surrender, in a way, to what it wants, or it will consume you both. Kylan felt a chill run down his spine. His power had always been his armor, his control absolute. And yet now, faced with the weight of Lysara's words, he realized that control was useless here. He could not force the curse to obey. He could only follow, learn, and trust. And trust had always been the one thing he had struggled to give freely. They were silent for a long moment. The only sound the soft crackle of the candle flame and the distant echo of the castle at night. Then Lysara spoke again. There is something else, something you must know before this night ends. Someone is hunting me, Kaelin. Someone who knows of the curse. They will not stop until it is theirs, or until I am gone. Kaelin's jaw tightened. His mind raced, forming plans, strategies, ways to protect her. Who? He demanded. Lysara shook her head. I do not know, but I felt their presence tonight. Their eyes followed me through the crowd, and when I disappeared, they were waiting. Kaelin's heart clenched, his hands curled into fists, the need to protect her stronger than ever. Then we will find them. Together, he said, his voice low, filled with determination. No one will touch you, not in my kingdom, not in my sight, and not in my heart. Lysara's gaze softened, the first hint of vulnerability showing in her expression. She took a hesitant step closer, just enough for him to feel the warmth emanating from her. Kaelin, I am not the same woman you knew. I have changed. And I fear that in trying to protect you, I may put you in greater danger than you realize. Kalen shook his head, resolute. You are Lysara, the woman I loved. The woman I still love, and I will not let fear drive me away. Not now. Not ever. For a moment, they stood in the flickering candlelight. Two figures, bound by history, desire, and the heavy weight of magic. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, longing, and the quiet knowledge that neither of them could turn back. Suddenly a sound shattered the fragile stillness, the faint rustle of movement from the shadows near the library entrance. Both Kalen and Lysara tensed, their instincts sharpened. Kalen drew a dagger from his belt, the blade glinting in the dim light. Lysara's hand went to a small amulet at her throat, a charm of protection she had carried for years. "Someone is here," Kalen said, his voice steady despite the rush of adrenaline. "Stay close to me." Lysara nodded, stepping behind him, her eyes scanning the shadows. A figure emerged slowly, a tall man cloaked in black, his face hidden by a hood. He moved with purpose, and Kalen recognized the tension in his posture. This was no ordinary intruder.
"You seek the curse,"
the stranger said, voice cold and smooth, echoing slightly in the cavernous library. "And yet it seems the curse already belongs to her." Kylan's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" he demanded. "And why do you follow her?" The stranger smiled faintly, a shadow of amusement in his tone. "Names are irrelevant. I am merely interested in what is bound and what is free. The girl you call Lysara carries a power older than kings, and you, Alpha King, are foolish if you think you can shield her from what waits." Kylan tightened his grip on the dagger, the fire in his heart burning brighter. "I will not let you or anyone else touch her. She is mine to protect. Understand?" The stranger tilted his head, the smile never leaving his face. "We shall see." And with a sudden movement, he vanished into the shadows, leaving only the echo of his footsteps and a faint trace of dark magic lingering in the air. Lysara exhaled softly, her hand shaking slightly as she gripped Kalen's arm. "Kalen, this is only the beginning. The curse. The danger, it is coming closer. And I fear the next step may not leave either of us untouched." Kalen's jaw clenched. His mind raced, planning, strategizing, already thinking of ways to hunt, track, and destroy any threat. Yet beneath the fire a strange thought lingered. Some battles could not be fought with swords alone. Some darkness demanded trust, patience, and a bond unbroken by fear. He turned to Lysara, eyes locking with hers. "Then we face it together. Every shadow, every danger, every secret."
You will not face this alone.
"Not while I draw breath." Lysara nodded, a mixture of fear and relief crossing her face. I hoped you would say that." The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, and the castle seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere in the darkness, unseen forces stirred, their attention drawn to the bond forming between Kalen and Lysara. The game had begun, and neither of them could yet imagine its cost. Kalen and Lysara moved from the library into the castle's winding passages, following the trail of black feathers that promised both danger and revelation. Each step brought new questions, new fears, and new sparks of the connection they had tried so long to forget. And as they disappeared into the shadows, the night seemed to hum with anticipation, as if the kingdom itself awaited the unfolding of secrets long buried. The castle of Arvindal seemed to change as Kalen and Lysara moved deeper into its heart. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the corridors, twisting with the flicker of torchlight. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of old stone, wax, and something far darker. Ancient magic that had lain dormant for centuries. Kalen kept his hand close to his dagger, his senses alert, But it was Lysara who moved ahead, her steps light, cautious, and yet deliberate, as if she knew the way through the castle's hidden veins. "Kaelin," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustle of their footsteps, "this way. There is a place where the curse, its influence, is strongest. We must see it to understand it." He followed, his jaw tight, heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Each corridor they passed seemed older than the last, walls lined with tapestries depicting kings and queens, long dead, eyes stitched in dark threads that seemed almost alive. He did not speak. Words felt unnecessary, weighed down by the storm of emotions that churned inside him. Every glance at Lysara reminded him of the years lost, of nights when he had longed for her touch, her smile, and the sound of her laughter. Finally, they reached a door unlike any other in the castle. Dark wood, engraved with swirling patterns that pulsed faintly as if alive, stood between them and the unknown. Lysara pressed a hand to the surface, muttering words in a language Kaelin did not know. The carvings glowed, and the door swung open silently, revealing a chamber bathed in a soft, eerie light. Inside, the room seemed to breathe. Shadows danced across the walls, twisting into shapes that hinted at movement, forms that were both human and inhuman. At the center of the room lay a shallow pool, water black as obsidian reflecting the pale light of floating lanterns, and beneath the surface something stirred, faint ripples moving like living veins of energy. "This is it," Lysara said, her voice low, reverent, and fearful. "The curse resides here. It draws power from bloodlines, from desire, and from fear. It seeks what we hold most dear, and it tests it." Kaelin stepped forward, his gaze locked on the black water. "How do we fight something like this?" His voice was calm, but his hands betrayed him, tightening around the hilt of his dagger. "I can fight men, monsters, armies, but this, how can I fight what I cannot touch?" "You do not fight it," Lysara replied. Her eyes met his, dark and knowing. "You understand it. You respect it. You face it together." Kaelin's brow furrowed. "Together? Yes," she said. "You are bound to me, Kaelin, whether you know it or not. The curse chose me first, but it now senses you. It tests the bond we share. It wants to see if we are strong enough, if we are worthy." He felt a strange chill run through him, a mix of awe and fear. All his life he had been trained to control, to dominate, to bend the world to his will. Yet here, in this chamber of shadows, he realized that some things could not be tamed. Some forces required surrender, trust, and courage of a different kind. Suddenly, the water rippled violently. Kaelin stepped back, dagger raised. The surface of the pool glowed, and then a shape emerged, shifting, changing, neither fully human nor entirely shadow. It moved like smoke and flame, coiling around itself, and then fixed its gaze on them. "You are bound," the voice of the shadow hissed, reverberating through the chamber. "Yet you do not know the strength of your own chains." Kaelin's teeth clenched. "Who are you?" he demanded. "I am the reflection of what you fear," the shadow replied. "I am the test of desire, of control, of the ties that bind hearts and blood. If you falter, you lose everything. If you fail..." Lysara stepped forward, hand extended toward Kaelin, her eyes locked on the shadow. "Do not listen to it," she said. "It cannot touch us unless we let it. It feeds on doubt, fear, and pride. We are stronger together." Kaelin felt the weight of her words. Her courage, her confidence, drew him in even as the shadow sought to sow fear. He stepped closer to her, their shoulders almost touching, their presence a single line of defiance against the darkness. The shadow lunged toward them, and the room seemed to shift. darkness and light clashed, twisting, spinning, until it was impossible to tell what was solid and what was not. Kalen's heart pounded as he realized that this was more than a test of strength. It was a test of trust. Could he truly stand beside her without trying to control her, without letting his anger or jealousy drive him? Lysara raised the amulet at her throat, whispering words of protection. A silver light spread outward, touching Kalen, binding them together. The shadow shrieked, recoiling from the bond. Yet it was not gone. It lingered, circling, testing, waiting. "You see?" Lysara said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "It does not yield easily, and neither can we. We must move forward, together, or it will destroy us." Kalen nodded, swallowing hard. Pride and instinct told him to fight alone, to seize control, to protect her by force. But the truth was undeniable. Here, he could not fight alone, and he could not fight without her.
"Then we face it," he said, his voice low and determined. "Together."
Whatever comes. For a moment, they stood there, the silver light of the amulet binding them, a shield against the shadow's assaults. And then, as if sensing their unity, the shadow lunged again. But this time, it moved differently. It seemed almost hesitant, almost curious. Kalen realized then that this force was not merely evil. It was a test, a reflection of what they could become if they allowed fear to rule their hearts. "Kalen," Lysara whispered, her hand brushing his, "there is more. The curse, it is not just danger. It is a choice. It seeks to reveal the truth of desire, the truth of love, and the truth of power. You must see it for what it is, not as an enemy, but as a mirror." He turned to her, eyes searching hers. "A mirror of us?" "Yes," she said softly. "Of us, and of what we could be. It wants to know if we are worthy, and it will not stop until it knows." The shadow pulsed again, coiling and shifting, and then slowly withdrew, leaving ripples across the black pool. Kalen and Lysara remained standing, hands brushing, hearts pounding. For the first time, the weight of the curse did not feel entirely like a threat. It felt alive, demanding respect, demanding courage, demanding unity.
"We need to move," Lysara said finally. "The curse is growing stronger.
There are others who will come for it, drawn to its power. And we are not the only ones who seek to control it." Kalen nodded. "Then we prepare. And we hunt. Together." They left the chamber, the shadows closing behind them, as if the castle itself exhaled in relief or anticipation. The corridors outside seemed quieter now, yet the weight of what they had witnessed lingered. Kalen's mind raced with questions. Who would come for the curse? How much power did it truly hold? And most importantly, what was the cost of facing it fully? As they moved through the corridors, their hands brushed again. A small, fleeting contact that sent warmth through both of them. Neither spoke, but the connection was undeniable. For all the fear, all the danger, all the uncertainty, something stronger had begun to grow between them. Something neither time nor magic could erase. Suddenly, a sound echoed from the far end of the hall. Footsteps, deliberate, slow, and certain. Kalen's hand went to his dagger, and Lysara's hand tightened around his arm. They were not alone. From the shadows emerged a figure, tall and cloaked, face hidden beneath a hood. Kalen tensed, ready to strike. But Lysara's voice stopped him. "Wait," she said. "It is him." Kalen's eyes narrowed. "How?" "He knows about the curse," she whispered, "and he is dangerous."
The man stepped forward, revealing a faint glint of silver in his cloak.
"Alpha King," he said, voice smooth and controlled. "And the woman who carries the curse." I have been watching. The night is not yet over, and neither of you will leave this castle unchanged. Kylan's heart tightened. The danger he had feared was not a shadow in the chamber. It was real, human, and very near. Yet beneath the fear, a strange thrill ran through him. The test was not over. The dance of shadows had only just begun. And for the first time in years, Kalan realized that the woman he loved and the bond they shared was both his greatest strength and the most dangerous challenge he would ever face. The first light of dawn had yet to touch the towers of Arvindal, leaving the castle cloaked in a deep, silver-gray haze. Kalan and Lysara moved swiftly through the shadowed corridors, hearts pounding, every step echoing with the knowledge that the cloaked figure from the night before had followed them. He was no ordinary enemy. Magic radiated from him like a second heartbeat, dark and ancient, tied to the curse that had haunted Lysara for years. Kalan's hand never left hers, though neither spoke. Words seemed unnecessary in the thick, tense air between them. Their bond was their shield. Every instinct told Kalan to protect her, to strike first, to dominate the danger as he always had. But here, in the shadow of ancient power, dominance was useless. Trust, understanding, and courage were the weapons they needed. Lysara's fingers tightened around his hand as they approached the inner chamber, the heart of the castle where the oldest magic slept. Kaelan, this is where it ends. Where we face the curse, we cannot run anymore, she whispered. Her eyes, dark and shimmering, met his. We must confront it together, or it will consume everything. Kylan's jaw clenched. I am with you, Lysara. Always. Whatever comes, we face it side by side. The chamber ahead was massive, circular, with walls carved from black stone that seemed to drink in the flickering torchlight. In the center lay a raised platform, surrounded by a pool of water as black as night. The same obsidian that had pulsed in the library, shadows twisted across its surface, forming shapes that seemed alive. Kalan and Lysara stepped onto the platform cautiously, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on them. Suddenly, the cloaked figure emerged from the shadows, his presence filling the room. He raised a hand, and the water began to swirl violently, forming a vortex of black liquid that reflected twisted, flickering images of Kalan and Lysara.
Alpha King, the figure said, voice smooth and chilling, and the woman who carries the curse. The time has come.
The bond you share will be tested, and only one path will lead to victory. Fail, and everything you hold dear will be lost.
Kaelan stepped forward, unwavering. We will not fail.
Not together. The figure laughed softly, a sound that echoed unnaturally in the chamber.
Together,
he repeated.
Let us see, he gestured, and the shadows within the water surged, forming countless shapes, past fears, lost memories, desires, and regrets. They danced before Kalan and Lysara, taunting them, twisting their hearts with illusions meant to divide and weaken them.
Kalan's breath hitched as he saw visions of Lysara in danger, in pain, in the arms of others. His mind screamed to act, to control, to save her. But Lysara's hand on his stopped him. Her eyes locked onto his. Do not let them trick you, she said firmly. This is not real. The curse feeds on fear and doubt. Trust me. Trust us. He nodded, swallowing the fear that clawed at his chest. Together they stepped closer to the vortex, their hands clasped, hearts beating as one. As they neared the edge, Kalan realized something he had not before. The curse did not want to destroy them. It wanted to reveal the truth of their bond, to test whether their hearts were strong enough to face darkness together. Then we face it, he said, voice low and steady. No illusions, no fear, only us. Lysara nodded, and together they stepped into the swirling black water. Instantly, the shadows leapt toward them, wrapping around their bodies, trying to pull them apart, showing visions of betrayal, doubt, and despair. Kalen felt himself trembling, memories of past failures and fears rising like waves. He saw Lysara with others, heard whispers of her leaving him again, felt the icy grip of helplessness. But then, Lysara's voice cut through the chaos, clear and strong.
Kalen. Focus.
Look at me! We are stronger than this! He forced his gaze onto her, eyes locking with hers. And in that moment, he felt it, a surge of warmth, a tether that bound them beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond even the curse itself. The shadows faltered, twisting violently as if resisting the bond that refused to break. "You are strong," Lysara whispered, her hand pressing to his chest. "We are strong. Together. Always." Kalen's heart roared with certainty. He no longer needed to control, no longer needed to dominate. He only needed to trust, to be present, to fight beside her. He extended his other hand toward the shadows, not in anger, but in defiance. "Leave her. Leave us." The black water shuddered, and the shadows recoiled. The cloaked figure's eyes widened, recognizing the strength that radiated from their unity. The vortex began to collapse, its edges dissolving into harmless ripples. The illusions vanished, leaving only the platform, the pool, and the two of them standing together, breathing heavily but unbroken. Lysara lowered her hand from his chest, smiling faintly through exhaustion. "We did it," she whispered, though even she sounded surprised. Kalen pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "No," he said, voice soft, filled with awe. "We survived. Together. And nothing can ever separate us again." The cloaked figure stepped forward once more, but the shadows that had empowered him now lay dormant. He lowered his hood, revealing a face that was neither cruel nor evil, but solemn and burdened with knowledge. "You have passed the test," he said quietly. "The curse is broken, not by force, but by choice, by trust, by love. Few can achieve what you have. Few can confront darkness and emerge united." Kalen's jaw tightened. "And you? What will you do now?" The figure's eyes flickered with a strange light. "I am the guardian of the curse. My purpose is complete. When those tested succeed or fail, you have succeeded. Now, go and live your lives, Alpha King and Woman of the Curse. Live and protect each other." With a final nod, he stepped into the shadows, vanishing completely, leaving only the calm black water behind. Kalen and Lysara stood silently, letting the tension drain from their bodies. The first rays of dawn began to filter through the high windows, touching the black stone with gold. The castle seemed to exhale, releasing the centuries of fear and darkness that had lingered in the walls. Kalen finally spoke, his voice low and steady. "Lysara, all these years, I blamed fate. I blamed the world. But the truth? The truth was that I was not ready. Not ready to trust, not ready to love without fear. But now," he drew her close, his forehead resting against hers. "Now I am, with you, always." Lysara smiled, a mix of relief and tenderness. "And I am ready too, Kalen. Ready to face whatever comes, as long as it is with you." They walked out of the chamber together, hand in hand, their steps lighter than they had been in years. The castle around them seemed transformed, no longer a place of shadows, but of light and possibility. Courtyards gleamed in the early morning. Gardens glimmered with dew, and the distant mountains caught the first pink and gold light of the sun. For the first time, Kalen allowed himself to feel hope, not as a ruler, but as a man. And for the first time, Lysara felt free, not as a victim of a curse, but as a woman who had survived, who had grown, and who had chosen love over fear. They reached the highest balcony, looking out over the kingdom. The city below stirred with life, unaware of the quiet battle fought in the shadows, unaware of the curse that had been broken, the bond that had been tested, and the love that had been reaffirmed. Kalen wrapped his arms around Lasara from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "The kingdom is vast, and danger may yet remain," he murmured. "But whatever comes, we face it together. I promise you that." Lysara leaned into him, resting her head against his chest. "And I promise, Kalen. Together, always." The wind carried their words into the morning sky, as if the mountains themselves had heard and accepted their vow. And for the first time in a long time, the world seemed still, waiting, not for a battle, but for the story of a king and the woman who had haunted his heart to continue, unbroken and unafraid. Yet even as they stood together, a faint shimmer danced on the horizon, a reminder that magic never truly sleeps. But Kalen and Lysara no longer feared it. They had faced the darkness, conquered the shadows, and discovered that the truest power lay not in control or force, but in trust, courage, and the unwavering bond of two hearts joined by fate. Their story had changed, their paths intertwined, and together they would write the next chapter of Arvindal. Not with fear, not with domination, but with love, hope, and the strength to face whatever future awaited. Final image: Kalen and Lysara standing hand in hand on the balcony, the first rays of sun illuminating the kingdom. Black feathers from the past swirling gently in the morning breeze, a symbol of trials survived and love reclaimed.